Do you have a baby, toddler, or young child in your life? If you do, this is not going to be a podcast that you want to miss. For today's podcast, we are going to dive into the topic that sparks both curiosity and controversy for many parents: sleep training. Sleep is one of the most essential aspects of a child's health and development, but getting there isn't always easy. Whether you are a new parent who is navigating sleepless nights or you're just curious about the different methods and philosophies behind sleep training, today's episode is going to offer insight into how we create a healthy sleep routine for your little one and look at sleep from a truly comprehensive lens. We will break down the science behind it, explore different approaches, and discuss what works best for your family. We want to help you and your baby and your kids get as much needed rest as you need. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Your Mouth Matters. I am Dr. Rebecca Taylor, the owner of Green City Dental, a biological holistic dental office in Edmonds, Washington, and O2donics, a practice that's focused on TMJ, facial pain, snoring, sleep apnea, and functional orthodontics. So welcome, everybody. I'm super excited today because we have a very special guest on, and I have to say before I introduce her, I just feel like as a new mom, she's probably been one of my favorite people because I preach sleep and how important it is, but she is just amazing at helping moms figure out how to get their babies to sleep better and getting everybody more sane. So with that, I'm going to introduce Desiree. Desiree, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
So Desiree is a sleep consultant, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so can you, I felt like before I had babies and before I even, I remember I went to a CE class years before I had my daughter, and there was somebody that did sleep training, and I really had no idea what that was. I was very intrigued by it. It sounded really cool. So I knew when I had my daughter, I wanted to connect with somebody that did that. But can you talk to us a little bit about, what that is and who you are, and give us a little intro?
Sure. So a sleep consultant is more than a sleep trainer. A good sleep consultant should assess everything that is involved with sleep when it comes to your little one. So there are adult sleep consultants out there, but I specifically focus on pediatrics. So a newborn to 5 years old, even older if I need to. And so you assess everything from: what does the bedtime routine look like? What does the nap time routine look like? What does the bedroom look like? What type of foods is your little one eating before bedtime? What is their position of their mouth when they're sleeping? Is their tongue at the roof of their mouth? Is their mouth closed? What does their schedule look like? Are you helping them fall asleep, or are they able to fall asleep on their own? So there's lots of things that go into my world when I'm helping clients out to help improve sleep. So that's what I do, is I assess the whole situation holistically, look at everything that could be possibly causing the disruptions that the parents are having, and then coming up with a good plan so that we can fix their little one's sleep, unless I feel that there's a medical component to it. If there's a medical component to it, then I can obviously help with some part of it, like behavioral and schedules, circadian rhythm, sleep pressure, but they will have to seek extra assistance, at that point in time. And I'll tell them what I suspect's going on, but I'm not a medical doctor.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you get into this world? Because I feel like it's not really something that, you go to your high school, career fair, and they're like, do you want to be a sleep consultant? So how did you get into it?
To be fair, I was in a corporate marketing position, and that's what my background is, for about 19 years. I had a set of twins. They're now 16, but when I had them, my husband traveled 3 to 4 days a week, and I'm from Pennsylvania, so my support system was back east, and I'm here in Seattle area, so I was by myself. I was overwhelmed with just having my first baby and then having twins on top of it.
I can't even imagine
for anyone to handle. And
Oh,
Yeah, the first few weeks were awesome because we had the baby moon period where they were sleeping all the time. But they like around 4 months they hit that regression and they hit it hard. So what happened was I remember sitting in the bathroom with my husband and crying to him and telling him that I needed someone to help me with the sleep because I wasn't getting sleep. They weren't getting sleep. It was just so overwhelming. And at the time, there wasn't such thing as a sleep consultant. But what I did buy was the Weissbluth book. I don't believe in cry it out, but Dr. Weissbluth gives great information in his book about sleep science, what to expect every month in terms of sleep, what is the circadian rhythm. So he really dives deep, and I was able to take some of his information and then help sleep train my own kids. So fast forward 7 years, still working in marketing, but I got pregnant with my third child, and I think I had PTSD from the twins, and I didn't want to have that again. So I decided to take a sleep course. I saw there was a sleep course for infants, and I decided to take it. But then when I started taking the course, I realized there was a huge need for something like this as a marketer. Like, oh gosh, there's a niche out there, like where you can help parents out with this. So I had my third child. I worked as a marketing professional as well as a sleep consultant. And then once I start really loving it, like probably 6 months in, my husband supported me and said, start your own business. And yeah, the rest is history at that point in time. I feel like it was definitely my pathway to help people with sleep because I love helping others. But my youngest, he has sleep disordered breathing. And so he has sleep apnea, and it didn't present itself until he was about 3 years old. So he probably always had it, but the symptoms didn't really show up until he was 3 years old. And I was able to diagnose him before we even got the sleep study. I had to convince my pediatrician to do the sleep study. She didn't want to do it. She said he would grow out of it.
that's
And I
crazy.
said, I know, like, I know this is not correct from what I've studied, what I've been learning from other practitioners. I had a mentor that's been doing this for 20 years in Canada. And so, yeah. And then he got that sleep study and he had moderate sleep apnea.
Wow.
So, yeah. So then
You've seen it. You've
I
seen
feel
it
like
all.
this was my pathway, just because I was able to help diagnose my own child
Yeah.
with a sleep issue.
Yeah, well, and it's really interesting because when you are helping so many other people and you're seeing all of these babies and they're responding well, and then, your own child is like maybe not responding how you expect them to respond because there's something else going on. It's just it's a great learning experience. I feel like so much of what I've stumbled upon just in biological dentistry and just the path that I'm on has just been, you find like you get life kind of throws you curveballs, right? And then you're like, well, I got to go figure that out because this doesn't actually make sense anymore. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he was a great sleeper, but he was showing other signs like, the like his eyes looked like he was tired all the time, even though he was sleeping so good. I thought he was.
Yeah, the
But then
bags.
then he start mouth breathing and then start waking up more at nighttime. So then all of a sudden it was like his system was on fire at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, I talk a lot about sleep at my office just because that's kind of what we do. We talk a lot about the airway and mouth breathing and really getting the airway more open, taking care of, tonsils or adenoids that are blocking and really focusing on proper function, right? That's what we do. And the reason why we do all that is because sleep is just so important. I mean, sleep is where our body resets. It's where our immune system is going to, do all of its work. It's where we release our hormones at nighttime, especially in kids, releasing growth hormone at nighttime. It's where we detox. So that sleep is so important. And it's really interesting. My daughter also went through that sleep regression at 4 months. And it's also right around the time you go back to work, right? Your like maternity leave is over and it's like, okay, great. Now back to work. And then your baby just stops sleeping and you're just like, you want to pull your hair out because you're exhausted. And you just like, are like, I can't believe that as a functioning, as an adult, I'm supposed to go back and be functional because I'm waking up. I can't sleep. I haven't slept for days. My baby is so needy and clingy and I mean, that sleep regression for me was so intense too. And I was so fortunate that I knew about sleep consultants and was able to get the resources that I needed. And I just feel like there are so many moms and dads out there that they just go through this crazy struggle, where they just think that this is normal. This is how my life is when I have a baby. And, oh, they're just not a good sleeper. And what I learned from you, because I actually worked with Desiree with my own daughter when she was going through her regression, was that it's really amazing how there is a science now to babies and the sleep and kids and how, there's like just the schedule and the hormones and these windows that we have. Like if you know what you're looking for and you follow the program, like it works amazing. And, moms and dads don't have to be crazy tired. It's really just such a powerful tool.
That's true. That's true. I know if the parents are tired, think about how tired the baby is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's what I tell parents that come to me. I said, if you're tired, think about how tired your baby is. So, this is either you make a change or then this is going to continue. But then the other thing I find, which you probably hear as well, is that parents start resorting to unsafe practices like co-sleeping, which co-sleeping in certain cultures, yeah, it's great. But we know in the United States that co-sleeping can cause issues in terms of rolling over a child or suffocation with a blanket, or, that's where I get nervous, whenever someone co-sleeps, because there are some things that are really scary. When your child becomes mobile, you might be sleeping and your child crawls right off the bed.
Yeah. Oh no, I've been there. I think when you get into the regression, at least for me, when my daughter was going through all that, I mean, I had to co-sleep because it was like survival at that point. Yep. It was like, if I don't co-sleep, then I just don't know how I'm even going to function. And then when I would co-sleep with her, I couldn't sleep because, like you said, I'm like so worried that I'm going to roll over on her or she's going to fall off the bed or, she's rolling around and hitting me in the face and I don't want to break my nose. I mean, so many times I got kicked in the face, when I was co-sleeping, and I could not sleep. I don't know how. I mean, if you're a mom and you co-sleep and you love it, I'm like, that is so great. Like my sister
if
co-sleeps.
It's working for you, that's great.
My sister has co-slept with all of her kids, and like, her husband works nights and she likes cuddling their kids, and it's like, great. That's awesome that works for you. Personally, I got so much anxiety and I couldn't sleep next to my daughter co-sleeping, and it was like you said, if I can't sleep and she's over here rolling around and whatever and waking up all the time, like, she wasn't sleeping well either. So, so yeah, I think that like for me, co-sleeping just kind of becomes the last resort, but.
Yep. But you can room share. Like I tell parents that call me and they are co-sleeping, but they still want to be close to their child. We can go through the sleep training process and you could still room share. Your child could still be right near you, but in a more safe place. So
absolutely.
So that your anxiety goes down, your child's in a crib, they're in a safe spot. They're not rolling off your bed. They're not hitting you, and you're not worried about a blanket going over their face or something like that. So
totally. And I think, my daughter slept in our room till she was a year old. And
I do remember that. Yeah.
And I was really glad that when she got her new room, but we had to like do a construction project. So she was sleeping in the closet for a while. And anyways, it was like not ideal, but we made it work.
So that's kind of like when we're talking about co-sleeping versus room sharing, I do want to debunk that myth that you can sleep train and still room share with your child. A lot of parents think that they don't have that option of room sharing still once that your child is sleeping better, but you absolutely do.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of there's just a lot of opinions and just kind of bad reputation when you talk about sleep training. It's kind of like one of those things as a mom where you're like, are you going to do sleep training? Like you kind of hush, like say it because so many people judge you as a mom when you're
stigma,
like,
for sure.
Yeah. And you're like, I want to sleep. And I remember this is so funny because I had gone to this class with a sleep trainer. And before I had my daughter, before I was pregnant, like way before, and I was like fascinated. I heard her talk and she was like, babies should be able to sleep through the night at this age. And like, we just need to like, blah, blah, blah. She was basically, preaching all the things that you teach. But it was such a different idea for me. And I was like, whoa, that is so cool. That makes so much sense to me. And so I remember I came back from that class and I was telling my mom about this sleep person and what she said and how babies should sleep and how they're, at a certain age, like they should be good and that we need to sleep and we're better parents if we can sleep and everybody's sleeping better and sleep is so important for our health and whatever. And I'm just like going on and on about this class. And I had a friend there too, and they were both moms, and my mom co-slept with me till I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how old, like forever. And then my friend also, like, I think co-slept with her until she was like, he was like 7, 8, 9, like really old. And both of them were like, well, you won't be able to do that. Like, you will not be strong enough as a mom. Like, you just wait. You just wait until you have your baby and you will not be able to do it. And they were like so negative about it. They're like, I just don't believe in that. It's so stressful on the baby. It's so stressful on the mom. Like, you just wait and see. You're not a mom yet. You just wait and see. And it's so funny because let's fast forward now. I have my daughter. I did sleep training with you. And both of them are like, whoa, this is not what we thought it was. And I can't believe that Quinn is such a good sleeper. Like, my mom is like bragging to all of her, all of my aunts, like, look at, she just puts her in the crib and she just sleeps, and she won't wake up until the morning. And then my other friend is like, literally going through like a decade of bad sleep, co-sleeping. And she's like, it's really science-based. Like, this is so interesting. It's not really about crying it out. It's not really about this. It's about like reading their circadian rhythm and like figuring out like when they're tired and their cues and their schedule. And it's all science-based. And oh my gosh, if I would have known that this was actually what sleep training was, then I would have done it. And so it's just so funny because I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, you guys, like, you don't get it. And then I did it with Quinn, and now they're both just like, oh, sleep training is amazing.
Yeah. I know. I don't like the word training because it does have a negative connotation to it.
Well, and there's just been like in the 50s, right? Wasn't it like the 1950s or something? They were like very into like babies being separated from the parents. Like, they didn't want you to touch your baby. Like, I remember my dad was saying that like his mom was told by their doctor that like if she cuddled her boys too much and like made them like touched them and was very loving, that they would become gay. Like, that's literally what my dad's mom was told by the doctor.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
ridiculous, but like
ridiculous.
But that's like, when you come from that in like the 50s, where people are just throwing their babies in the crib and letting them cry it out and just like, we need separation, we can't be close. I mean, that is not what we're talking about when we're talking about sleep training, right? And that's why I wanted to do this podcast with you, because I just think there is so much misinformation. And I also want moms and other, parents that are struggling with sleep, like, there is resources for you and you don't have to struggle. And, it's actually for the health of your baby. Sleep is so important, especially in a young baby and child when their brains are just developing at a rapid rate. It's just so important. So
they're milestones as well. I find a lot of clients tell me after they're done working with me that their child's reached so many more milestones than they were previously.
Oh, I can definitely see that. That's because that sleep, right? They're
not tired, they're not cranky, they're able to handle things way better at that point in time.
Totally. And I think, also I see this a lot with kids that are like failure to thrive. As soon as you start getting them sleeping better, then they start secreting more growth hormone.
They start gaining more weight.
They gain weight. Yeah. They'll go through, it's like they shoot up and you're like, whoa, like you were in 20th percentile and now you're like at 80th, and it just happens so quickly when you start getting them to sleep. So I think that's the other thing, is that I know that like for moms and parents, it's very emotional, like you want to be next to your baby. You don't want to make the world hard for them. But, sleep coaching and sleep training is about teaching them how to sleep in a way so that it will benefit their health, but also last them a lifetime too. Because I really truly believe that when you treat early and you set the foundation from day one or from whenever, you start, it's going to help them for a lifetime. Having good sleep is, some of it is a skill. Some of it is like sleep hygiene, there's
yes,
right.
Yes. Yes. I mean, look at all the sleep aids on the market these days. It's because a lot of people just don't have that good sleep hygiene right now. A lot of adults.
I saw an article recently about like how a lot of kids are like getting overdosed on melatonin.
Oh, my husband saw something recently on that. There was a daycare that gave these melatonin patches. Yeah, I just don't. So I don't believe in melatonin for children. So melatonin is naturally produced, as you know, Rebecca, from darkness. Obviously, and our melatonin is the strongest at night. So whenever your baby is napping, it is important to be in a very dark room because melatonin, the pineal gland will start, producing that melatonin for your baby. It won't be as strong as nighttime melatonin, but the pineal gland will get the message that it's time to start secreting it. So yeah, I have had families that come to me because they're out of desperation with their toddler and they are microdosing them with melatonin because the pediatrician said it's okay. But I don't believe that it's okay because I think you're just setting up your child for failure to be stuck on melatonin for life at that point in time. And why give it to your child if they don't need it? So I've had many clients that come to me and we actually get the child off the melatonin. But awesome. that is definitely something that's out there right now as well. There's lots of children melatonin on the market.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a lot of melatonin. And people think, "Oh, it's just a supplement, it's natural, like whatever." But
it is natural, but the pineal gland should be producing it for the body.
Absolutely. And the gut, a lot of our melatonin is made in our gut as well. So like if a kid is needing melatonin, then that's kind of a sign that maybe they need like to work on their sleep hygiene. Like you said, you need darkness for your body to start going, oh, it's time for melatonin. That's kind of where we get like the sunsets and everything, right? Like we really should be trying to be outside and have our lights not so bright, right? Not have blue light and all of that. That's all kind of sleep hygiene that kind of helps train our circadian rhythm and our body naturally will make melatonin. But if a kid is also low, then we might need to look at the gut. What's going on with your gut? Are you even able to produce the melatonin? Do you have the right microbiome? And it kind of, we talk a lot about the gut on these podcasts because it kind of all comes back to that. But it's like just looking at it, I think comprehensively, right? It's not, Western medicine is so much about like, oh, you aren't sleeping? Okay, here's a pill. Here's the melatonin. Here's a sleeping pill.
The symptom.
Exactly.
Treating the symptom instead of finding the root cause.
Exactly. But our bodies are smart. Our bodies are made to function the right way. And we sometimes just have to help unlock that for them, and there's so many different interventions now. I mean, even in the baby world, just creating a dark room was so hard for me. Like, because I know that my baby needs to sleep in a dark room, but it's like we have the curtains aren't really blackout, and then we get the light in the big windows, and it's like, oh my God. And so I think so many people just, you don't even realize like, oh, just a dark room can make that big of a difference.
Make a huge difference.
Yeah. Or just having the right, activities before bed, even like, if you have a bunch of blue light before bed, like that's going to also tell the body that it's daytime. If you're on a screen before bed, that's telling your body, oh, it's daytime. And blue light is good. It's good when you wake up in the morning, but it's not great before bed, right? So,
exactly.
So I love that you look at that the sleep from a very comprehensive view. I think that that's awesome. But can you talk a little bit about so I kind of talked about like how when I was talking to my friend that she was like, this is so science-based. Obviously, you're looking at comprehensive things like the circadian rhythm and everything, but there's also like what I learned was like wake windows and can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So every human being has I call it a sleep bucket, right? A amount of sleep or a sleep bank. They have amount of sleep that's specific to them. For example, my twins, born on the same day, 6 minutes apart, as different as can be in terms of what they needed in terms of sleep. So there is something called like your total sleep amount, but there's also something with wake windows that we need to pay attention to with a baby. So I would say that for the first 6 months, I do pay attention to wake windows for a baby. The reason why, so what a wake window is the time from the your child is exposed to light, so out of that bedroom or the crib or, out doing daily activities until you get them down for their next nap or their bedtime, their next sleep time. So that's the time in between. The younger the baby is, the shorter the wake window should be. So for example, a newborn may only be able to stay awake for 30 minutes between sleeps, or 45 minutes. Very normal for a newborn to be like that. Whereas the baby develops almost every few weeks or every month, those wake windows can get a little bit larger, but only slightly. It gets about 5 to 10 minutes at that young age, larger. So from newborn on, for example, a newborn's wake window is 30, let's just say 30 minutes. By the time they reach 6 months, they're at 2.5 hours. So you got to get those wake windows right, because if you give your child too little of a wake window, their sleep pressure might not be strong enough to be able to fall asleep, or they might fall asleep, but it might be a very short nap. So, or the opposite can happen where you have that wake window too large and that baby is overtired and not able to sleep very good at all, or at all for that matter. So wake windows are very important. When I have a client, what I explain to them is that instead of just saying wake windows, I talk about wake windows, but I put wake windows in a visual for them. So think about when you wake up in the morning, your balloon, let's just say that your balloon is deflated completely. So we want to inflate that balloon to the perfect size so that your baby falls right to sleep and stays asleep. If you don't inflate it to that perfect size, if it's too much, that wake window is too long and that baby will just be overtired. But if you inflate it not quite enough, like almost enough, but not quite, you're still not going to get the best quality sleep or the best quality nap. So we're looking to get that best inflation, that perfect inflation for your child. But like I said, every child has their own sleep totals as well. So let's say that one 6-month-old needs 14 hours of sleep, where another one might only need 13. So that's where I come in, as I figure out those 24-hour totals. And then I disperse it based on wake windows throughout the day so that your child's sleep can be balanced correctly based on what their personal needs are. So that's, I probably got really into that, and very scientifically, I try to put that little metaphoric, explanation in there. But there's a science and an art, I think, to sleep consulting as well. But those wake windows are important because your child can get overtired very quickly within 5 minutes. Like it could happen very quickly. Or they might be undertired. Like they might look tired and they might fall asleep for you, but they may not be truly ready to fall asleep yet, where we might have to push that wake window just a little bit longer. Absolutely. Once your child
always have
child's about 6 to 9 months old, around that age. Again, it's all dependent on the child, is where I start really trying to focus on by the clock based on their sleep totals, so that I'm dispersing those sleep times, their nap times and their bedtime based on what their individual needs are at that point in time.
Yeah, if you're like a mom or dad listening or a grandparent where, you let you're driving home, you're like, we're going to go home and take a nap, and then your baby falls asleep in the car. Oh, that is the worst. Then you're like, this is just going to be bad,
Well, you might be able to transfer them over.
My daughter she would never sleep in a car seat. She would never sleep in a car seat. I could never transfer her. It was like, no. But I was going to say, so I knew a lot about wake windows and all of that just because of my field, and going and having a baby was so precise. I had an app, I tracked her sleep. Mm-hmm. I researched her, wake windows and what her schedule should be like and all that, and I really stuck to that. But I still was like, this is so insane. I'm still not able to get this baby to sleep, even though I was so educated and was so but it was amazing. What I thought was just amazing when I worked with you was that you had me log Quinn sleep, and you did a questionnaire, and then you were like, looking at this and how it is, I think you should just change this by, put her down to bed 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes, or even 5. I think you told me 5 even. And literally that night that I did that, she slept the entire night.
Yeah, it made all the difference.
I remember I emailed you and I was like, what did you just do? How did you do that? And then after that, I just stuck with it. And like every night, I went like 5 nights where she just completely slept through the night. This is a baby waking up like 5 or 6 times a night. She just completely slept through the night. I think maybe she woke like once, but then was like really easy to go back down. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like freaking magic. Like, how did you do that? And it's amazing to me how like 5 or 10 minutes can make such a big difference.
Yeah,
and
they have little bodies, and their bodies can respond really negatively.
And, and even, I mean, it's so funny because the timing of this podcast is so funny because this last week, Quinn has been having a really rough time. Like, we're on the same schedule. She's going down for naps. She's just in her crib, like, Mom, help me. I'm, like, just doesn't seem like she's tired. And then we'll just conk out hard and then wake up early. And you're like, what are you doing? And then go to bed and you're like, you're so tired. And then, she won't go down to like last week, she didn't go to bed till like 11:30. I ended up having to co-sleep with her because I was like, I don't know what's going on with you. So I messaged you and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, what should I do? And you were like, oh, she needs less sleep during the day. So just do this, adjust it by X amount of minutes. And sure enough, like literally that day, back to normal. Back to normal.
I did. I counted how many hours you were doing. So when you gave me that schedule, I was able to count how many hours she was doing when she was doing that schedule, right? And then I based it on, okay, let's just shave some time off at that point in time.
Yeah. But just so simple. And like, again, if I didn't know you, I would have just been like, I don't know what's going on with my baby. She must be getting sick or something, like something's off here.
Or
but
she's
no.
scared.
Yeah, she's having a nightmare. She's like, like night terrors, nightmares. All of those things can be because their sleep schedule is off.
Yeah, she's scared because she's like, I'm not tired yet.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not sleepy. So you were saying to me when we worked together, like a baby should fall asleep within like what, 5 to 10 minutes?
5 to 10 minutes is
5
what
to
I
10.
like to see.
Yeah, so if they're not falling asleep.
Under 5, if I see it under 5, I think that's too quick. But then if I see it over 10 minutes, then I think it needs to be definitely honed in a little bit more.
Yeah, that's all so interesting. So, and then how young do you recommend, like if a parent's listening to this and they have a baby and they're interested, like how young do you start all of this sleep training?
Yes. Yeah. So I offer newborn packages. The newborn package, though, is not really sleep training. It's so that you don't have to sleep train. So I work with parents it's a 2-month period to help adjust schedule, sleep hygiene, ideal room environment, as well as getting those timing points right, and then reducing the amount of having to rock your baby to sleep or hold your baby to sleep over that 2-month period. We can't do any sort of really sleep training method at that point in time, but the goal is that you would work with me so you never have to sleep train because we're getting everything in place basically in a very gentle way. But in terms of if you're having a hard time with your little one, and if your baby's like 4 months old and you're having a hard time, we can always start working on sleep training. Although I really don't like doing more of a firmer method. I don't offer firmer methods unless your child is 5 months or older. And I offer methods. So I don't just say to parents, this is the method you're going to do. I give them a couple different options. I've been doing this for 7 years now. So I tell them what I've seen, what goes right, what goes wrong, typically the pros and cons with each. And then I support the parents with what they decide they want to do based on their parenting style. And so sometimes it can be as little as, a couple weeks. And sometimes I've had clients where it lasts over a month because I'm supporting what their goals are and how they want to do the sleep training.
Yeah, I think it's definitely everybody's got to pick the right, the right method for them. I know for me personally, I just needed sleep really bad. And I was like, I'm okay with a little crying. And to be honest, I mean, I think the first night that we did our sleep training, I think Quinn cried. You had us going in, so she wasn't like just sitting there crying this whole entire time.
No.
It took her about an hour to get down, maybe 45 minutes. And then after that, she was just sleeping through the night. And what I tell people is like, look, I know you don't want your baby to cry, but like I did one night and it took 45 minutes and she was fussy during that time. But after that, there was no tears.
Yep. And I told you to go in, pick your baby up.
Yeah,
Like,
pick your baby up,
we're not gonna
give them love, give them love, tell them that you're there. Like, we're not abandoning them, but we're like, hey, it's time to sleep, and let's, we gotta teach your body how to do that. It's like any skill, right? When you first start, you may not be very good at it. It's going to be a little rough in the beginning, but it's about thinking about long term and about how this really impacts their health. And it's crazy because you just see there's a lot of moms that just have that their whole life revolves around their kid's sleep schedule, right? Where like we had some friends over and it was 7 p.m. and, they had a 3-year-old and they're like, okay, well, we're going to bed. And I'm like, it's 7, They're like, well, we have to, we co-sleep and we have to go to bed when they go to bed. And it's just like, oh my
wow.
gosh, like your whole life, like how are you productive in doing anything when it's nap time or when it's after bedtime? I'm like running around the house like a crazy person, cleaning up and doing whatever. Like, how are you even doing life like that? Like, that just seems crazy. So anyways, I kind of viewed it with Quinn was like, there's going to be some crying up front and it's going to be a little rough, but I'm teaching her this skill that she's going to have.
Short term.
It's very short term. And the amount of tears and frustration, I think, is less net if you look at that versus every single night the struggle to get your kid to sleep, right?
Exactly.
So to me, for me, it was just like slam dunk, like, yep, this is the best way. And I just, I just really think, of course, you have to feel good about it as a parent, but if you can push through that first day or 2 days or week or whatever, everything's going to be so much better. And the grass is greener.
Some babies respond in 10 minutes. Like they don't cry more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I work on trying to get those foundations in place. So we don't just go right into sleep training when you hire me.
Yeah.
We try to put foundations in place before we go ahead and do the sleep training to reduce the amount of crying.
Absolutely.
And I find that some children, some babies, it's like less than 10 minutes and the parents are like, wow.
It's like magic.
Yeah.
It's like, what did you do with my baby? This is a different person. So, and we've talked a lot about babies, but, my daughter now is over 2. You're still helping me.
A lot of toddlers.
I bet you do, because toddlers, there's a lot going on in toddler brains. There's so many changes that are happening as they figure out the world. But how old do you work with? Like,
5 years old is typically the oldest that I worked with in terms of what my certification has. I have worked with a 6-year-old before, being very open with the parents saying that my certification says 0 to 5, but if you want to hire me, I'm sure that I could figure this out for you. And we were able to figure it out. But typically I would say so anywhere up between newborn to 5 years old is what I typically get in terms of clients.
Okay, awesome. And starting them really, really young, but not doing the full thing until they're like 4 to 6 months. Is that?
Yep. And I have clients that come to me who co-sleep up until their child's 2.5 years old. So it's never too late to sleep train. If you decide at 2.5 years old, I had a family come to me recently. They want to try for a second baby, but they can't because there are little ones in the bed with them and also nursing all night long. So, we're like on our last week right now, and the 2.5-year-old sleeping in his own room, no longer nursing at nighttime. Mom and dad are happily in their bed, alone, and they're planning to hopefully have another baby here soon. They want to.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
it's never too late.
I think, the breastfeeding thing it's great. I breastfed my daughter till she was like 19 months. And, but your baby can sleep through the night. They have enough fat on them to sleep through the night. They don't need to be feeding all night long, and actually from a dental perspective, we don't want them feeding all night long because that there is sugar in breast milk. And I don't believe that babies that are breastfed, like that's the cause of decay. But, if your baby is snacking all through the night, it's just like during the day. If you're snacking all through the day, your cavity risk is going to go way up because every time that we snack, our mouths are turning more acidic and our saliva has to buffer, right? And then if you throw in a baby that is maybe mouth breathing on top of that, well, now you're drying the mouth out and it's very acidic. And so now your baby is now in the super, super high risk for decay. So it's, again, I'm not bashing breastfeeding. I love it. I think, I think every mom should. I think it's great. If you can, awesome. But the whole open bar at nighttime, I actually don't really believe that is that is best for babies, at least their oral health and their teeth.
Not at all. But the mom was in survival mode, as we talked
Absolutely.
about.
Yep, absolutely.
And then she just didn't know any other way. And she knew it was bad, but what could she do? Because she just was so overwhelmed and didn't know where to start. I remember their opening line to me on our discovery call, and it was, "Is it too late for us to get good habits?" And I said, "Not at all. Not at all." I said, "Will it be a little bit more difficult? Maybe, but maybe not." One of the first things we did was start talking to the child about that there was gonna be a change before we did anything, because communication is key. A 2.5-year-old can understand when you're talking to them.
Well, and it's so great that, you're just like the coach too, right? So the parents, get to really have you help them. And I'm sure you manage a lot of people, because it's not easy sometimes.
I do, yeah.
So,
but I do love working with my clients. My parents everybody's so wonderful. I've had wonderful experiences. That's why I'm still doing it 7 years later. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So we talked a little bit about, I think that the wake windows and all that for Quinn was like the number one, but we see a lot of babies in our office that are mouth breathing or snoring, have sleep apnea, like your child.
If I do suspect that, then I always refer them out for sure.
So, sometimes like there's things in the diet that are causing inflammation. Dust, dander, and dairy are kind of the big three, right? If your child is sleeping with a cat in the room or something and they have an allergy to the cat, then they can get stuffy. And then dairy can also be a huge contributor with causing inflammation in the tonsils and the adenoids. So we definitely, if you see that your child is mouth breathing, or you hear snoring, or you hear heavy breathing, or they're waking up with bags under their eyes, those are all signs that you probably need to dig a little deeper. And I can't tell you how hard I have to fight for kids to get a sleep study. Like you were saying, I ended up just starting to do them myself in my office, because so many pediatricians are just like, oh, they'll grow out of it. Or even the ENTs, they're like, oh yeah, the tonsils are big, but they'll probably, they'll shrink over time. And you're like, okay, but this kid is literally not getting enough oxygen in their body. Like their brain is developing. We need these to be fixed right now, because most of that growth is happening before age 5, like most of our facial growth and stuff happens before age 5, and there's so many neuron connections happening during that time. So I would say if you're a parent listening and you see that your child is sleeping with their mouth open, or they're snoring, or like any of those things, that you definitely want to have those things checked out. And at Green City Dental and Oceanics, we focus a lot on that. We see a lot of kids. So
let's talk about when they are diagnosed, because I dealt with that with my child, and I know you're going to love this one. The first line of defense was a CPAP for my 3-year-old.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that just doesn't make sense.
Away, no, because it's going to smash on his face.
Yes.
His face is growing, as you were just saying.
Yep.
Right away.
Yeah.
I said, I am not going to do that to my child.
Well, and it's crazy that that's the first line, right? Because we have so many other options, So first of all,
insurance would only pay for that. Insurance would not pay for any other route. So we had to pay out of pocket for everything.
Oh my gosh. Well, this is why we don't even take insurance, because it doesn't even matter if it's covered or not, because they won't cover it regardless.
It's frustrating.
But it is so frustrating. So yeah, I mean, if a kid is not breathing very well, we have to look at why. Like you can't just put a CPAP. That's again, like Western medicine, here's your pill. Do you really want to put a CPAP on a 3-year-old who's then going to be dependent on that CPAP their entire life? And that CPAP is putting pressure on their face. And so we're trying to grow this face forward, which is actually going to grow their airway. Okay, we know that when the face grows, it grows forward and it widens, and then the airway grows at the same time. It's all connected together. So if you want a healthy airway, you have to grow a healthy face. You have to grow the face the right way and encourage that face to grow. And by the way, the face is pretty much done growing. Most of the growth is done by age 8 or 9. So by the time you get to the orthodontist, when you're like, 10, 11, all your adult teeth are in, your growth is done. That ship has passed, it sailed. So you really want to do early intervention and identify the dysfunction as soon as possible. And if you can get them in a baby, that's great, because babies are easy. If you can identify what's going on in a baby, like let's say they have a milk allergy. Okay, well, don't feed them milk. And then when they're 5, you're not going to be like, well, cheese is their favorite food. How could I possibly get them off of cheese? You don't worry about that in a baby. You just do it. You work on nasal hygiene. My daughter, when she was 6 months old, she got her first cold and she had all the snot. And I'm like, okay, we got to get this out of here. I don't want you to, I don't want you to learn how to breathe through your mouth and think that that's normal. You know, there's so many kids that are in daycare and they have such snotty noses, and that's going to happen. But we have to be teaching our kids proper nasal hygiene. We have to be flushing all of those boogies out. So, you know, now my daughter, she's 2, she'll come to me and be like, I have a booger. And I'm like, do you want me to get it out for you? And she's like, yes. So I will flush her nose out, you know, and because she feels better. But if you don't start those things early, it's harder to do that later, right? So first is like nasal hygiene, and then sometimes tongue ties are an issue, or lip ties. And sometimes tongue ties aren't actually even tongue ties. Sometimes they're just fascia restrictions in the floor of the mouth, or they're because the cranium, there's some torque in the cranium, and that's creating a restriction. So doing things like oralase, releasing fascia, cranial sacral therapy, releasing a tongue and lip tie if needed, those things can all be very, very pretty minimal. And you can see these big changes in the way that kids are breathing and the way that their mouths, you know, that getting their mouths closed and their tongue up.
I was going to say low tone. The tongue has low tone.
Yeah, low tone. And there's, you know, there's things like Myo-Munchie that you can use with babies that help stimulate jaw development. And there's even straws. I just made a TikTok actually today with a straw that helps this with the swallowing and the tone of the tongue that you can give to your kids so that they can, you know, that tongue and the breathing is so foundational. And so we have to start there. And that's why if you just pop a CPAP on, it's just really a Band-Aid, and it's really not going to serve them long term. In fact, it's going to make them have a disability where they're dependent on a CPAP machine for their whole life, and they're going to need a lot of orthodontics and have a retruded jaw and a retruded face and an underdeveloped airway. So
and luckily I had that education where I said, no, I'm not going to go that route. Thank you for the results, because I was hoping that insurance would pay for some of his orthodontics based on the results, but they still didn't even know, because they wanted to, but we'll only pay for the CPAP. And I said, that's just ridiculous.
It's so sad.
That's not the route we're going to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the first line and the only line of defense, according to the pulmonologist that we saw.
And you know, if your kid has if sleep apnea is life threatening, it's severe, great, get on a CPAP. Like I am not anti CPAP, but I don't think that a CPAP is a great.
But there's other things you could do.
It's not long term. It's it's a put the fire out. Let's figure this out. Let's find the cause. But it's not a long term solution. So that is just, to me, crazy that we would even be putting kids on CPAPs. I mean, it's like we gotta think a little bit bigger, you know. And we have such like. I feel like a lot of our medical practitioners are so smart, you know, but still we just are kind of stuck in these older ways.
There's a lot of silos though with the specialties. I think that there's not a lot of cross specialty talk going on, you know, in the Western world, you know, so everything's kind of stuck in the specialty and the silo versus kind of together.
Yeah, so, integrating it all together. And yeah, that's so true, because that's
which is a bigger issue, obviously, way bigger issue than
because none of this I didn't learn.
Yeah.
I didn't learn any of this stuff in dental school that I'm telling you right now. Like, it's definitely something I've had to find, you know, and pursue myself. So yeah, hopefully we will see some changes in that. I think, you know, sleep apnea is kind of a newer diagnosis. The first sleep apnea diagnosis, I think, was like 55 years ago. So we're learning a lot about it. We're learning a lot about airway, and we're seeing more mouth breathing and stuff, and seeing more of a need for orthodontics. You know, 75% of kids are going to need orthodontics. That means that their face didn't grow the right way, which means that functionally something is off, right? So because we're seeing more of that, I think eventually, you know, we are starting to put some of the pieces together, but we're still so, you know, our education is still pretty stuck in the old school line of thought.
It is, yeah. But yeah.
So awesome. Well, so Desiree, if people are interested, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds like I really need a Desiree in my life. I need some help bad. I can already think of a few patients right now that I wish I had this podcast to give to them. How do people get a hold of you, and how do they get started?
Sure. So I have a website. It's pediatricsleepcoach.com. There's an intake form on the website so that I can get in touch with you. And you could reach out to me there. The second option is you can look me up on Google, my business on Google, and you can also review the reviews on there, and then call me. There's my direct number as well. But if you call me, I'm still going to refer you back to that link so that I can get you into my system and my calendar so that we can have our first initial consult.
Awesome. And how booked out are you? Like if somebody wanted to get started?
Usually right now, gosh, I just had an influx of, I don't know what's going on lately. I don't know if it's because the time change or people are getting nervous or what's happening. Usually I can get a client in within a week, sometimes 2 weeks. It just depends how busy I am at that time. So
that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
and I love your program too, because once you're done working with you, you still have access to the Facebook page. And you are so responsive on that page. Like I said, I was having some issues with Quinn last week, and I just like messaged on the Facebook thing, like, this is what's going on, help me. And then within like hours, you got back to me. And before we went to bed, I was able to make changes like same day. So it's just awesome.
Yeah. So that support group was created. It's a post sleep training support group, and it was created for clients that only work with me. So, and you can vouch for it, Rebecca. It's not a parent-to-parent group. It's specifically for my clients to reach out to me so that we can keep everything keep everything together as much as possible. Yeah. All the work we did, we want to keep it all together for your little one.
It's so awesome. All right. Well, if you are listening and this sounds like you need some help, then reach out to Desiree. She's amazing. Or if you're a grandparent and you just want to like pass this podcast onto your kids so they can learn a little bit more about sleep. Remember that every family and every child is very unique, so what works for one may not work for another. As parents, we have to trust our instincts, stay patient, and be kind to ourselves along the way. Establishing a sleep routine is a process, but with time and consistency, you can create healthy sleep habits that benefit both you and your little one. Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with other parents. And don't forget to check out our other episodes for more tips on all things dental-related and systemic health. Sweet dreams, and until next time, remember, your mouth matters.